given the opportunity, we're just going to sit here and keep talking. And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Monday, November 7th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by PrizePicks, and we have all of them today. 15 NBA games starting every 15 minutes at 7 p.m. all the way until 10:30. It is not fun, but we're going to break it all down here. Adam will come back later on today and do a 90-minute deeper dive to break it down. You'll get live before lock for an hour. I love letting Adam know things that he did not know 5 seconds before they came out of my mouth. Fantastic. Adam, how's it going?
Yeah, great. Just found out that I'm doing an hour and a half deeper dive.
Well, it looks like we both had some scheduling quirks come out in the past 2 minutes that we're not thrilled about. Anyway, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. How was your weekend, man?
It was good. Definitely in a better mood today than I expected to be. Cade Otton's random touchdown with 9 seconds left turned me a small profit in NFL, and I thought I was going to get my ass kicked despite having massive amounts of Joe Mixon everywhere. So that was nice. But yeah, weekend was good. How was yours?
No complaints whatsoever. Took it easy basically both days. Liverpool beat Tottenham yesterday, so that made every bit of my Sunday fantastic. But just caught up on life. Got some stuff done around the house. It was good. All righty. You want to just get into this? I don't have random nonsense to say at this point in time. We have every single team on the slate. A lot of them are on back-to-backs for today. They're obviously not on a back-to-back for tomorrow. There are no games. So if you're coming here tomorrow looking for NBA content, you're not going to find it. There's not a single NBA game on the schedule for tomorrow. So you can pretty easily just take the day. Take a Tuesday for yourself. I know I'm excited to do nothing tomorrow. I assume you're also pretty excited to do nothing tomorrow.
I was until Saul Goodman reminded me that there's hockey.
There you go. All right. Well, there's also your Washington Wizards kicking it off against my Charlotte Hornets. Wizards are 3-point dogs, 221 total. This one's pretty hard to talk about. Washington played yesterday. Bradley Beal did not play that game. He is now in COVID protocols. He might not have COVID. He could play today. I don't expect him to, but that is pretty important information for the first game out here because when Beal's not there, a lot of other guys are just going to look way better.
Yeah, it's obviously huge information because Beal, even though his usage rate is down this year, he's still such a big part of this offense in terms of usage and playmaking. Kristaps Porzingis was disappointing yesterday, but he does get a sizable bump in production when Bradley Beal isn't on the floor going back to last year. He's played 506 minutes without him, 30.5% usage rate, 1.4 DraftKings points per minute. So if Beal is out, Porzingis is certainly going to look better. If Beal is in, I don't really think there's a lot to like from this team. Porzingis would still be certainly reasonable. Like he's still a high upside guy. He's averaging around 1.25 fantasy points per minute this year, $7,700 center only. He would look fine. You know that you get a nice ceiling from Kuzma, but this is a massive slate. So if Beal is in, there's not much that I love from Washington. I think Porzingis would be my favorite option. If he's out, it's where things really start to open up. Porzingis looks a lot better. Kuzma gets a bump. Probably not going to need Denny Avdia type values all that much on this slate, but it would be a bump for him at 3,600. Will Barton at 4,200 gets a bump. So Beal potentially opens up a lot of stuff here.
I don't have too much to add to that one just because it is one of the few games where, we're going to know this information before tip. Luckily for us, this is a potential Q tag that exists in the first game. When we start getting to those real Q tags for the 9:30, 9:45, 10 o'clock games, that's when stuff really makes you want to go insane.
One really interesting rotation piece from yesterday without Beal, and I don't even know what to read into this because I don't know that it continues. Jordan Goodwin played more minutes off the bench than Will Barton did. Yeah. With Beal out, it makes a ton of sense for Barton to play a lot more minutes as just some semblance of a scoring option. In the first half, Goodwin didn't play a lot. In the second half, he played a ton, but he was also playing really, really well, both like offensively and defensively. He was just kind of being a pain in the ass for John Morant late in the game. So I think that was probably just hey, this guy's playing well. We came back from down a bunch of points. Let's just keep going with it situation, and that Barton does play more minutes today. But it is interesting to me that Barton still managed to only play 24 minutes without Beal yesterday.
I feel like they don't like Will Barton.
I kind of get that impression.
Like,
I don't really know why they
19 minutes 2 games ago.
What'd you say?
He played 19 minutes 2 games ago, 14 a couple games before that.
I don't know why he didn't start over Avdia.
I mean, I don't even mind if they start Avdia over Barton. I just assumed in these situations, anytime people are out, Will Barton's playing 24 minutes plus, like by default.
Yeah. But like to your point about like, and I just don't really know why they're using him the way that they are. I understand why he comes off the bench. Typically, you don't need him out there with Bradley Beal. It makes sense to have the Avdia / Anthony Gill spot starter. I was pretty confident that Gill wasn't going to start yesterday because that would just be an atrocious offensive lineup without Beal. But I don't understand why they wouldn't just throw Barton in there. He's a secondary ball handler for Morris. He's a capable scorer. Avdia can handle the ball and play make as well. But you would just kind of think that you want another scorer out there.
Anything else for Washington?
Nope.
On the Charlotte side, we have no LaMelo Ball, no Gordon Hayward, Cody Martin doubtful, DSJ questionable, which is a very complicating factor. He rolled his ankle pretty early in their game 2 nights ago. Terry Rozier now is back, went straight into 36 minutes in his return. I think Rozier looks all right at 7,700 on DraftKings. DSJ's status is actually pretty important here. They just run out of bodies. What do you want to do with the Hornets, though? If you assume DSJ's in or out, what stands out to you?
Yeah, so the DSJ thing is huge. Trying to get that game pulled up now because it's not showing anywhere. Yeah, so it's not on Popcorn Machine or Add More Funds. So that's tough. McDaniels, I believe, started the second half with Smith out. Smith started the game and then obviously was injured. So I assume that if Smith's in, he's starting the game. He's still 6,100 and playing alongside Terry Rozier. I don't expect him to be quite as good from a point per minute standpoint. Certainly should still get minutes and can have good games, but I do think playing alongside Rozier hurts him a bit. Rozier's the guy that looks the best to me at 7,700. Like you said, he played huge minutes in his first game back. They said he wasn't going to be on a minutes limit, and he actually wasn't. So it was nice to see a coach actually tell the truth and then do what he said. Rozier, I think, looks pretty good. No Hayward, so plenty of usage available for him. Outside of that, if you land on some Oubre, some Dennis Smith Jr., if he's in, some PJ Washington, some Plumlee, like any of those guys are fine. But this is a 15-game slate. So again, there's just going to be a lot of guys that, it's like, yeah, if you land on them a little bit, they're fine. But there's nothing separating them from 15 other guys.
Yeah, that's where it really gets confusing here. There are a couple guys that are like no doubt about it priorities for today's slate. And then if you want to pick like a guy in the 8Ks or something, or like even 7Ks, Terry Rozier, anybody that's just sort of priced appropriately, they are more than functional, but they're going to look like they're in optimal lineups like 5% of the time.
Yeah. From this team on DraftKings, the only player we have in optimal lineups more than 4% is Rozier. We have him at 16%, probably just is a bit underpriced at 7,700.
16%. That's healthy.
Yeah, that seemed a little high to me, just without.
I got 8.
I'll say that seems more reasonable to me. We also have him projected for like 44 DraftKings points.
Yeah, I got him at 40. 22% ownership. I do think that he is the best Charlotte option, but
yeah, without a doubt.
I also have the entire Charlotte like first 8 guys at 5x, so they all look pretty similar. Hard to prioritize anything else for Charlotte. I'm ready to keep it moving if you are.
Yeah, disagree with the KP is ass comment, but yeah, dude's pretty good.
Yeah, and will look like one of the better plays today if Bradley Beal is out.
Yeah. I mean, he was terrible yesterday, which was cool for me because he was like a lot more popular than Vooch, and I just flipped them and Vooch crushed him. But yeah, dude's pretty good.
Yeah, not as that much I know. I mean, like when he's out there, when he's healthy, he's good. Like pretty much his entire career. So
yeah, like I feel like he's one of the more like it's cool to like hate on KP because like he was with the Knicks and I guess was sort of a disappointment there just in the sense that like the team always sucked and he was always hurt and stuff. But yeah, it's like the dude's really good at basketball.
Sure is. 15 minutes later, Houston tips off at Orlando, 227 total. 4.5 point dogs are the Rockets. This one's actually pretty easy to talk about. On the Houston side, we have basically everybody that's been in. Jalen Green is probable. Jabari Smith is probable. Jayshawn Tate, the only guy that is in this rotation that won't be here. I guess Bruno Fernando too, but he is out for extended time and has been out for 2 weeks now. Kevin Porter Jr., 15% owned on DraftKings, 16 on FanDuel. I do think that KPJ looks like the best option in this game. And then it's all filler, like everything else we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, that's why I see it as well. Porter Jr. averaging just north of 34 minutes per game, 1.1 DraftKings points per minute, 7,400. He's going to look good. Outside of that, if you get to some Şengün, cool. He's averaging about 28 minutes per game as a starter. He's averaging 1.3 DraftKings points per minute this year. He's also a $6,500 center, of which there are going to be a million of those that you can play. So yeah, nothing like that I think is a huge priority in the context of the entire slate. Kevin Porter Jr. looks like the best option from this team, I think, followed by Şengün.
Yeah, I have Şengün second on the DK side, but he's just going to look like every other center that exists. Jalen Green's 5,900 on FanDuel. I think that's just a much better price than he's got on DraftKings. You also get point guard, shooting guard instead of just shooting guard, but nothing here from Houston that I'd be trying to get to aggressively other than KPJ. KPJ to me is like a semi-priority for today's slate.
Yeah.
On the Orlando. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
No, I was going to agree with you. Like semi-priority in the sense that, like, I don't know, I'm probably playing like 10, 15%.
Right. That's high for today, I guess. On the Orlando side, much easier to talk about, I guess, for Orlando. We got that breakout Paolo Banchero game on a day where I wasn't near the slate. No Cole Anthony, no Markelle Fultz, no Gary Harris, no John Isaac or Mo Wagner. So normal Orlando rotation. We saw Terrence Ross not play a lot, so they've sort of flipped his minutes out. He's become Bol to a sense. Jalen Suggs' minutes have been very sturdy over the past 2 games. So have Wagner, Banchero, and Carter. The starters are actually playing pretty heavy minutes now for Orlando. Does anything stand out? Because no one's getting double digits. I want Suggs.
Yeah, I mean, nothing stands out in the sense where, like, I think I'm going to play a lot of them, but I do think that there's just a lot of upside here. It's a situation where you have a lot of guys that are going to have the opportunity to put up big games. It's just, good luck guessing which one it is. Suggs at 5,800, I expect to play around 32 minutes or so. He's a good option. He's getting the most ownership on this team and probably should at that price. Banchero at 8,700, we know has a massive ceiling, but that's a healthy price tag for him, especially on a 15-game slate. He, of course, went off for like 33 and 15 when he wasn't on the slate after torpedoing our lineups for multiple days in a row. Wendell Carter Jr., 7,500. I mean, that's a pretty healthy price tag, center only as well. Is getting, or at least last game was getting, some backup center minutes. Mo Bamba was not in the rotation anymore, so that's good for Carter, but still that's a hell of a price tag on him. So I think I would get the Suggs first. Any of Banchero, Carter, Wagner, Bol are reasonable, but I think really, really difficult to get to on the slate with any sort of, high exposure.
I like Bol on FanDuel for 5,900, but he's still just center eligible, which makes me think that FanDuel sets prices or sets positions based on height, and he's not going to ever adjust into the positions that he's at. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, he is the backup center, but he's not the straight center, and
he leads the team in rebounding. That's
great. He is not the center for this basketball team.
Yeah.
I mean, that is Wendell Carter Jr. for sure. 100%. He shouldn't be center only. That much I am confident in.
Yeah, like he should probably be power forward center.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Yeah, DraftKings went small forward, power forward, which is useful.
Yeah, I mean, that's closer to right than just center.
Yeah.
But drives me insane because it just makes him so much harder to play on FanDuel. But there are no priorities here. 8.5% owned Suggs is the highest owned guy on either site. Anything else for Orlando?
Nope.
God, we're taking even longer than I wanted to take already. It's 13 more damn games. This slate is so stupid. Oklahoma City, 1.5 point dogs in Detroit, 223 total. This is simple. The only guys that you can play for Oklahoma City are Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Dort, and Josh Giddey. They play everybody else. You never know who else is going to get legitimate minutes. I don't even know how playable SGA, Dort, and Giddey really are. It might just be SGA for 9,400 on DraftKings, and then you don't touch anything else. That's fine too, but it is not worth talking about this team.
Yeah, that's mostly how I see it. Obviously, any amount of SGA you get to, you're going to be happy with. He's playing great this year. Giddey being back is still not great for him. He's been very good with Giddey on the floor. He's even better without him. I did want to look quickly and see if they went back to staggering them last game. They did. So that's good. 2 games ago, they had stopped for reasons, which would have been bad for DFS, but they went back to staggering him. Obviously, whatever SGA you get to is fine. He's really, really, really good. Josh Giddey coming in at 6,900. It's a good matchup. But, I think there's a lot of guys that look like Josh Giddey on this slate. So to me, it's pretty much Gilgeous-Alexander and then everything else. Well, I think it's Gilgeous-Alexander. And then if you get to like some Giddey or Dort, fine, whatever. Everything else, I can't imagine wanting to deal with this Oklahoma City mess on a 15-game slate.
And then we go over to the Detroit Pistons. Almost called them the Detroit Tigers, which would have been really weird. I could have even went Lions. That would have been more relevant for me at this point, but 0 for 3. Cade Cunningham is 7,700 on DraftKings. He is double-digit owned, and that is helpful. 20% on DraftKings, 15 on FanDuel. The rest of this team looks okay, Bay or Stewart. I like the matchup against OKC, but I think Cunningham is an actual priority.
Yeah, I think Cunningham looks good here. He's just still very affordably priced. We know the upside he gives you. There's a relatively low chance that this game ends up being a blowout. It's only a 1-point spread. You don't get too many of those for Detroit, so that's nice. Cunningham's really, really good. Probably sees plenty of Lou Dort here, which isn't ideal, but at the same time, this game has a 225 total, and you're talking about a poor defense overall. Cunningham should be perfectly fine. So I think he looks good. Jaden Ivey, Isaiah Stewart, Sadiq Bey all look solid as well. But to me, Cunningham's the pretty clear priority, and it appears the field is likely to agree. We haven't projected for about 20% ownership.
Can you get anything else here? Like Beef Stew, 5,600 on both sites, power forward center, not really pulling much ownership. I mean, everything is all just single digits. Are there any other like legitimate things you can get to for Detroit? Because the matchup against OKC is appealing.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just another one of those teams where like all 5 of the starters are at least reasonable plays. Cunningham is the one that stands out. And then all 4 of Bogdanovich, Ivy, Bey, Stewart, priced 5,500 to 5,900 on DraftKings, all pulling between 5 and 8% ownership. They're just guys that sort of fall into your lineup because you need somebody at their position and price tag. Cunningham is the one where you're just saying like, all right, like I want Cade Cunningham in this lineup.
I've got nothing else for Detroit.
Agreed.
Schedule for the rest of the day. Pretty easy here. So we've got the No House Advantage football show at 3, No House Advantage NBA show at 3:30. Adam will be back for the deeper dive at 4:30. They're going to go 90 minutes for that one. Then you get NBA Live Before Lock at 6 p.m. That takes you all the way until 7. And then we've got NFL Live Before Lock for Monday Night Football from 7:15 up until lock. So still plenty of content for the rest of today. A little bit more bleak tomorrow, but we got a lot going on today. On the Pelicans side, game 4. Pels are 5-point favorites in Indiana, 235 total. I was really hoping that 235 total was really going to push some Pelican stuff to the top, but they're all sort of just priced up because of so many guys missing time in that for that basically week stretch. So Ingram's still wildly underpriced on FanDuel at 7,400. He's pulling a lot of ownership and he looks good. But on the DraftKings side, I don't think there's anything to go like super crazy for. Do you see the Pelicans any differently in this good matchup?
So I do like that Ingram played huge minutes last game. He's only 8K on DraftKings. You mentioned he's underpriced on FanDuel as well. Actually, that game did good overtime. So he played 33 minutes in regulation. So I take that back. Not thrilled with the rotation he played last game. But there is still plenty of upside for Ingram at 8K. Similarly for Zion, once again, 37 minutes for him. That includes overtime. Played 32 or 33 in regulation. 8,600, very high ceiling for him. Kind of, I guess, similar to Banchero in that certainly can go nuts, but also at a price tag where it's just kind of difficult to say he's the clear top option over all the guys priced around him. As a result, those are the only two getting any level of ownership here. Ingram at 11%, Zion at 5%. Both of those make sense to me. I think it's difficult to get to much else. Joe Val's playing time has taken a hit recently. He's averaging about 25 or 26 minutes per game for the season, but we've really seen him run into the issue that we've seen with other centers before where he has a quality backup that is only playing center minutes. If they were to start playing Larry Nance Jr. at the 4 for some of his minutes, that would be really good for Joe Val. But given that we've seen the tendency recently to just have Nance play without Joval on the floor, it makes it really difficult to project more than 25 or 26 minutes for Joval because Larry Nance is going to get his minutes.
That I can't believe they extended Joval last year. That's like if the plan now is like he is not their closing center any longer, that contract is not looking good. I didn't like it before. I didn't
realize they'd even done it.
Yeah, they tacked on an extra year or two for him. I can't remember if it's 2 or 1 off the top of my head, but they definitely extended him a bit.
And the thing is, like, I like this closing lineup.
Oh my god, yeah. Yeah, they just like you can't get by with that kind of spacing with Joval. I mean, they have been the team that should have traded for Miles Turner for months and years at this point, but they just don't seem to realize what to put around Zion in that case. Because Zion is not going to be the guy that they thought he was going to be defensively, which is a shame. So good.
Yeah, well, Herb Jones is much more than they thought he was going to be. So,
well, it matters a lot less for that. Having Zion be able to functionally play the 5 was a real thing they thought could happen. Let's go to the Indiana side. They're going to be without Chris Duarte for a pretty extended time now. Let's see. I don't know. 17 games is the estimate that I see. So multiple weeks. Q-tag on Aaron Neesmith.
They estimated 17 games. What kind of random ass estimate is that?
Basketball Monster just puts in a game amount in that time.
Oh, so. I thought it was like a quote. Like instead of being like he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, they were like he's going to be out 17 games.
No, they have like an estimated return date, and then like however many games happen in that time is just how they show it in the depth chart.
Okay, that's fine. I thought you were just like pulling a. They estimated he'll be out 17 games.
No, 16 to 18 they wouldn't say in the media anyway.
Right.
Q-tag on Neesmith, Q-tag on Nembhard. This seems kind of interesting, and you're seeing it in the ownership. Buddy Hield, Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, all into the double digits in ownership. You can see additional minutes for Benedict Mathurin. I will continue to get to Jalen Smith. I don't know how to project him any worse. If you look at his rates this season, he just ends up looking good. The minutes are just all over the place for that dude. How are you handling Indiana? Because I think that they're the first like actually interesting team to talk about.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point with Jalen Smith, not only has the production been inconsistent recently, like you've gotten games where he does get the minutes and he doesn't produce. Then last game, 2 personal fouls, plays 11 and a half minutes. Like, I don't know. He opened the game. He opened the third quarter, never came back after either stint. You got Nembhard playing 28 minutes in that game. Brissett was sort of in the rotation, played 12 minutes. I don't really know what to make of the Jalen Smith rotation. I do know at 5,200, he has the potential to give you a really good game if he just happens to get the 30 minutes and produce like we know he can. On a slate of this size, I don't anticipate chasing him too much. Halliburton still looks fantastic, I think, at 8,500. Miles Turner looks very good at 5,700. And then you mentioned Mathurin at 5,900. I do think the Naismith news matters at least a little bit there. We had seen Naismith starting, and then when he got hurt, Duarte moved into the starting lineup. Mathurin started the second half last game. If Naismith's out, we know Duarte's out. I wouldn't be surprised if Mathurin does start. Obviously, that's not ideal for his rates, but at the same time, I think he's just kind of going to get his. We know Tyrese Halliburton is willing to take a backseat as far as a scorer goes and just play make. We've seen that going back to last year with Indiana, going back to his time in Sacramento. Not saying that Halliburton won't score, but like he can very easily go from a 26-27% usage guy to 21 or 22. So I think Mathurin. And then if he starts, that's also good for Mathurin's playing time. So it offsets whatever drop in per minute production you're expecting. So if Mathurin's coming off the bench, I think he's fine in tournaments. But, again, massive slate. If he's starting and you can tack a few extra minutes on his projection, he's going to look really good at 5,900, I think.
I'm going to play so much Jalen Smith, man. This dude he's my new thing. I don't know what to do with it.
What do you mean you're playing a lot of Jalen Smith?
I mean, like he came out of my sim at 9.5% owned, and we have him at 6. Like I would end up getting like 15% of Jalen's.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, that feels like a lot to me to like be continuing taking this stand, even on a 15 gamer for Jalen.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that you could probably just not do that also, but I was like, are you really slamming Jalen Smith on a 15?
No, it's not Jaren Jackson season again.
On the off chance that he plays 18 minutes more than he did last game.
No, it's just he's just going to be one of those guys that is permanently like I'm 2x the field. Jalen Smith is the new Tyrese Maxey. No, because in this case, I actually don't think that I could do anything to change Jalen Smith rates. He just looks good. I just never know how many minutes he's going to play.
What's he done with Turner on the floor? Because it's been a while. Turner's been back for a bit now. And it has seemed to overlap with Jalen Smith sucking. But no, even with Turner on the floor this year, 1.13. Nope, that's with Turner off the floor. All right, so 1.13 with Turner off and 0.7 in 65 minutes with Turner on.
Oof.
10.9%. 10.9% rebounding percentage, 18% usage rate with Turner on the floor. 19.9% rebounding percentage with Turner off the floor and a 22.1% usage rate. So minus 4 points in usage and minus 9 or 10 points in rebounding.
Probably dial his rates back a little bit for this Miles Turner stuff. Because I mean, the real problem here is that like there's no real sample for those guys, but we gotta read into it at least a little bit because otherwise we're dead.
Well, and especially here, because like I didn't really know what to do with it when Turner came back, because it's not like Turner's a great rebounder. So there was a decent chance that you would just see Jalen Smith continue to rebound at a high level. But not that, like, I don't think it's a big enough sample that I'm going to just say like, oh, Jalen Smith has a 10% rebounding rate. But I do think it's a big enough sample where I can say, all right, I'm really concerned about the fact that Jalen Smith is not rebounding with Miles Turner on the floor.
Anything else for Indiana?
Nope.
Phoenix Suns are 1.5 point favorites in Philadelphia, 217 total. We got news from Phoenix over the weekend. Unfortunately, Cam Johnson going to be out for a while. Torn meniscus really sucks. I bet the calls to Jay Crowder are coming in hot and heavy from the Phoenix Suns at this point. But for now, they're just going to have to fill in with all the slop that's on the rest of the team, whether that's Torrey Craig or Landry Shamet, Damian Lee, Dario Saric getting dusted off. Is there anything for Phoenix for you here against Phoenix or against Philadelphia? Because I don't think that they look all that good.
Yeah, I don't think there's much. I mean, Torrey Craig sitting at 4K on a lot of slates that would be appealing. On this one, it's probably not that appealing. DeAndre Ayton, only 6,400, the only guy on this team really getting any ownership. And I think that makes sense. Going to typically play 28 to 30 minutes. Obviously can play a little bit more in any given game. Wouldn't read into his playing time last game. Had foul trouble in the first half, and then they beat the shit out of Portland, so he didn't play in the fourth quarter. But typically, you're looking at that 28 to 30 minute range. Only 6,400, good option. But again, there's a million good mid-range centers on the slate. So Ayton would be the guy I get to first. Booker and Paul both look fine. Cam Payne, is Payne back? Cam Payne is questionable. If Payne's questionable, I think you do give an extra minute or two to Chris Paul. That's typically what we've seen in the past. But either way, he's just going to look like a completely reasonable and not exciting $7,600 point guard on the slate.
And then we go to Philly. This is a Philly team with no James Harden. It is also a Philly team with a Q tag on Joel Embiid and a Q tag on Daniel House. Embiid has been out since October 29th. That was the only time that he has played since October 26th. My assumption is he's in, and I have him in here. And this Philly team looks interesting if we're just looking at their first four guys, whether that's Maxey, whose price is at 7,800 on DK and 8K on FanDuel. Embiid at 10.4, 10K on DK and FanDuel. DeAnthony Melton should be playing around 30 minutes, 5,300 and 5,600. I kind of like these Philly starters. Not a ton of ownership coming into them, and we still need to know the Embiid news, but I like this a little bit more than I expected to.
Yeah, if Embiid's in, I think that all four of those guys are pretty much correctly priced. Melton probably the most underpriced of the four on DraftKings at 5,300. But if Embiid's in, you are still talking about Melton playing more minutes, but also playing a lot of those minutes alongside Maxey and Embiid. So cutting into his usage a bit. Had a 29% usage rate last game without Embiid. If Embiid's out, then I think Melton looks great. And you would also get a nice bump for Harris and Maxey to where I don't think either guy would be 1 or 2% owned anymore. But if we assume Embiid's in, you're not going to be upset about getting to any of these guys. Melton's the one that I would expect to get to first, just because that price tag is a little bit cheaper. Maxey should still play a ton of minutes and be really productive, even if Embiid is in. The issue with Maxey, though, is now he's at a price point where you have to compare him to Cade Cunningham and Tyrese Halliburton and Drew Holiday, just all these guys. I do think that, we already talked about Cunningham, and ownership's not going to play a huge role on this slate. But, if you're just talking individual ownership, Cunningham at 8 or at 10% or whatever he was, Maxey at 1. I don't think they're that different.
Yeah.
But again, it's a 15-game slate. Ownership's not going to make that much of a difference. If Embiid's in, to me, it's just Embiid looks fine, Maxey looks fine, Melton looks like the best of the three. If Embiid is out, Melton looks great, Maxey looks better, Harris looks better.
Thibault? Or sorry, not Thibault. Harrell? Jesus.
If he starts, which I assume he would, he started last game, and they are going against an actual center.
Played 29 minutes.
Yeah, he's 4,500. He'd be fine. The opportunity cost is obviously still really high. Like the issue is it's a 15-game slate. So if you take he played 29 minutes, scored I think 26 DraftKings points last game. Let's say he just replicates that. It's very, very likely to be a situation where you're like, oh, I feel good because I got 26 points at 4,500. And then it's just like, oh, shit, I have no chance at winning a tournament because I used a center spot on 26 points.
He's 3,600 on FanDuel.
Does he have power forward eligibility?
He does not.
Yeah.
It's a shame. If he did, he'd be really, really, really interesting.
Yeah.
But for just center, obviously if Embiid is out, I mean, what would you project him for? 26?
Yeah, probably. The other thing, oh, never mind. He did play.
Good.
Yeah. I was thinking Thibault missed the last game, but he didn't.
We go to Milwaukee at Atlanta. Bucks are 2.5-point favorites in Atlanta, 226 total. This is an 8:15 tip. Obviously, you can sort of always play Giannis whenever you want. He's Giannis, 12-6. We're going to find value today somewhere. It's kind of tough. 11-6 for Giannis on FanDuel, way more appealing. He's pulling 25% ownership there. Drew Holiday is also 84% on FanDuel. I think those are the only two guys that you can get to. I don't know how frequently you can do it on DraftKings, but they look a lot better on FanDuel.
Yeah, DraftKings, I think it's pretty tough. And like you said, you're going to be able to find value. You can definitely get Giannis into quality lineups if you want to, but it's just going to be the same thing that we've talked about on a lot of slates recently, and even more so today because there's so many games. There are going to be guys in the 6 to 9K range that go for 50 to 60 DraftKings points. And if Giannis just goes out there and scores, the 65 fantasy points that, you used to be really nice because Giannis was like 11,000. Yeah. You're probably in a situation where you're not really happy because several guys in that 8K range did basically the same thing. If Giannis goes out there and puts up the 80 that he's fully capable of, you probably then need to have found a way to get to Giannis. But he's just priced correctly, kind of in that it's no longer a situation where Giannis's median projection puts him in the winning lineup. It's a situation where he needs to outperform his projection just like most other players do. And so it becomes more difficult to get to him.
This is one of the weirder ones just because what that top end talent is and it just doesn't look good for this one. It's rare that you look at Giannis and you're like, probably not today.
Well, I just view it like he's correctly priced now. If he puts up his top end score, you need him in your lineups, but that goes for every player.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I don't disagree. 11-6 on FanDuel to me is different. 8,400 for Drew at 80 is different. They are more playable, but it's
the reason like stars and scrubs is a really good strategy typically is that sites sort of just flatten out the top end of their pricing. DraftKings has stopped doing that recently, and as a result, it has made true stars and scrubs where you put in Giannis and 3K guys, $3,500 guys, not as appealing because you're just at a situation where Giannis becomes just like everybody else. If he hits his median projection, you don't want him.
And we go to the Atlanta side of this one. Atlanta, I believe, is on full strength. Bogdanović just shy of coming back now. Trae Young is questionable. That is what we will be waiting on. Doesn't really miss a ton of games, so I'm not all that nervous about it. No ownership coming into Atlanta, obviously. 7% owned John Collins is the high mark on DraftKings. 8% owned DeJounte Murray is the high mark on FanDuel. And that's sort of how I feel about Atlanta. If I had Murray or Trae Young or John Collins or Clint Capella in a lineup, I wouldn't be shocked. But to me, nobody just immediately stands out. Collins looks good, though.
Agreed. Man, pricing is really efficient today on DraftKings, at least so far.
Which is not what we needed on a 15-gamer.
I mean, I kind of like it, but
they could mess up one price per team, and it would still keep everything relatively flat.
Yeah. But I mean, it goes back to why I think ownership's just not really going to play a huge role, at least the way things look right now. It's just like, oh, well, that guy's 8% and this guy's 5%. Who really gives a shit? Yeah, Trae Young, good. DeJounte Murray, good. difficult to say that they're a lot better than other options, but certainly both very, very high upside options. John Collins should play 32, 33 minutes. He is 6K flat. Usage rate's down a bit this year, but he's still producing at a, around a fantasy point per minute clip. Clint Capella at 5,500 coming off of a massive game. The ceiling he gives you. He did play 30 minutes in that game, which was good to see. You just can't project that on a nightly basis because there's going to be enough games where Okongwu plays 20 minutes or 21 minutes and you're getting 27, 28 from Capella. But you do certainly still have that high ceiling from him.
Seems pretty cut and dry for Atlanta. I don't have anything else here. I'm going to assume you don't either if you're willing to take a sip of coffee. So we're going to go to Portland, 7-point dogs in Miami, 220 total. This is one we legitimately can't even talk about. So for Portland, kind of important here. Dame Lillard is questionable. I don't think he's going to play today, but he's questionable. And whether or not he plays dictates basically everything you could do today.
I don't really know why he would.
I don't expect him to. He's Dame. I mean, I assume if he thinks he can be out there, he wants to be out there.
Yeah. I was just thinking with the off day tomorrow for everybody, it's just well, you can just get 2 days off if you don't play this game. And I don't know if they play Wednesday, but yeah, you're right. If Dame can go, he's not just gonna be, I'll take it off.
Simons is doubtful. Josh Hart probable. Justice Winslow probable. If Dame is in, I think it's pretty easy to just sort of ignore this team. $8,500 Dame is pretty interesting on the FanDuel side, but if Dame plays, it sort of just slots everybody back into place, and I'm not all that concerned. Do you see anything if Dame is in?
I mean, he's 9,100 on DraftKings. If he's in and good to go, that's a pretty nice price tag there as well. Don't know, I do kind of assume that when Dame comes back, he just comes back. I'd be kind of surprised if you get the Dame's playing 29 minutes today. I think he probably.
I gave him 34, which is obviously light for Dame, but also just not really turning the screws.
Yeah. But yeah, I expect him to at least come back and play, in that 34, 35 minute range, which is still relatively limited, but not. I just don't expect that. We're gonna just ease him back in. I assume he's just gonna be good to go more or less when he gets out there. So those price tags do look kind of interesting in tournaments, but. Yeah, I'm with you. If Dame's back, it just becomes really difficult to then want to pay the non-Dame prices that you have on these other guys.
That said, if Damian Lillard doesn't play, I think Josh Hart looks really nice, 6,400 and 5,800. Jeremy Grant gets an increased role here. Yusuf Nurkic looks like a really great center play. You get value in someone like Keon Johnson at 4K. Portland opens up pretty well if we get early Dame news.
Yeah. Agreed. Everybody just sort of looks better, especially since we know that Simons is doubtful. We would just get more of what we've been seeing recently. To the point made in chat about nobody gives him the ball but Dame, Nurkic has a 19% usage rate with Dame on the floor. He has a 25% usage rate without him on the floor. Going back to last year, both
going
are
back
higher.
For years.
Yeah. He gets a very big bump in usage when Dame doesn't play. So Nurkic certainly looks better if Dame is out. Grant looks better. Hart looks better. Winslow looks better. You could not have been more wrong about Justice Winslow, by the way. Playing time.
Played 21 minutes yesterday or 2 days ago. Played 31 in the front end.
There was a second half of a back-to-back, and he played 16 minutes in the first half. Yeah. So, but yeah, he's been, has the ball in his hands a lot. If Dame's out, all these guys look fine. If he's in, I'm pretty much just interested in Dame.
All right. I expected to be wrong, but I'll be right in the end when he gets hurt because of it.
Right.
On the Miami side, not too crazy here, but we do have some stuff waiting in the wings. Q tag on Tyler Hero. Jimmy Butler is back after missing their past two. No Oladipo, no Yurtseven, Nikola Jovic is available. So if Tyler Hero can play, I don't really have all that much interest in Miami. You could work your way into every one of the starters, and that's sort of fine. And if Tyler Hero is out, they get incrementally better, but I don't see anybody that I think is just a no doubt about it play today for Miami, whether Hero plays or not.
Yeah, I mean, if Hero's out, you're talking about more usage for everybody else, but not by a big enough margin that it's going to really push them over the top, I don't think. Jimmy Butler's still at 8,800 on DraftKings, so sure, he would look better, but right now with Hero projected in, he's getting 1% ownership to describe, how not very appealing he looks right now. So all these guys would kind of just need a pretty sizable bump. Bam's salary has come up because of Butler being out, so now you're getting him at 7,900. Pretty tough to want to get there. Overall, a really unappealing team, I think.
Yep. Completely agree. No other interest here for me at all. So let's see. That's game number 7. So that is 4. Oh, okay. So we can actually keep it moving and talk a little bit about our presenting sponsor. That would be PrizePicks. If you click the link in the description of this video, head on over to PrizePicks and make a deposit. You will get up to $100 of an instant match deposit bonus. So if you put in 50, they're only going to give you 50. But if you put in 100, they will give you 100. You don't need an optimizer here. You're taking player props, over unders. Put together 5-on-1 card. You will net up to 10x your entry fee. I'm going to hit Adam with a couple points props for some of the guys that are playing today. Get some of our favorite plays out there. We'll start it off. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander over under 28.5 real points.
Slight under, I guess. We have it at 28. Probably just wouldn't take it.
I have it at 26.7, so I would actually take the slight under as well. Next up, let's take a look at our boy, I think, Cade Cunningham. Over under 21.5.
You have it at 21 too, so
okay. Probably a push on that one. That's slight over. I got it at 22.5, but nothing too crazy. Now, let's see. Who else stands out as someone that we should definitely be talking about? It's always fun to go to Zion Williamson. Over under 24.5 real points.
Slight under. We have it at 23.9. We also have him playing 32.5 minutes. I think that we haven't projected slightly under anyway, but there's always the chance that Zion plays like 30 minutes instead of 32.5.
I have him with an over at 32 minutes, so give me some Zion here. Might be a little high now that everybody's back. Last one, same team, CJ McCollum. No, actually, we'll go to BI. Same team, Brandon Ingram, over under 23.5.
I can't spell Ingram. Slight under, we have 23 in 34 minutes.
Okay, I got 23.9, so mine would be slight over, but feels like that line is about where it should be. Anyway, go check out PrizePicks, everybody, presenting sponsor of this show. We go to Toronto at Chicago. We're doing this one. This one, no doubt about it, we like the Toronto side of it because there is no Pascal Siakam, who has been the full-on heartbeat of this Raptors team so far. That is going to help out tremendously. Doubtful tag on Otto Porter, probably just not playing on the back-to-back. Fred VanVleet gets massive rate bumps with Pascal Siakam off the floor. I have tried to be at least a little bit muted to those rate bumps, considering I think we have him coming from a lower baseline than normal. That said, 7,600 on DraftKings, 7,200 on FanDuel. He's probably my favorite Toronto Raptor, but double-digit ownership going to Anunoby on both sites, double-digit ownership going to Barnes on both sites. I think it's completely warranted for those three guys. Feel free to get some Gary Trent. Christian Koloko looks at least a little bit interesting at 3,400 if he's going to be able to play. 22 minutes plus, I guess. Toronto looks entertaining here against Chicago.
Yeah, Toronto looks great because these salaries still haven't really adjusted for Siakam being out. And then, as you had mentioned, Siakam being out is always going to be a plus to these guys, even if you go back to the start of last year. But then this year's version of Siakam, where you're talking about a guy that has a usage rate like 10 points higher than anybody else on the team and, getting a ton of assists as well. VanVleet's played 92 minutes without him. Granted, 40 of those came yesterday, but a 23.9% usage rate. Overall this year, VanVleet's been around 16 to 17%. 40.9% assist percentage is up around 10 to 12 points as well. If you go back to last year, of course, you get a bump as well. OG Anunoby, 110 minutes without Siakam, has a 23% usage rate. Barnes is at 23.4 with a 30% assist percentage. Gary Trent Jr. only played 20 minutes yesterday for reasons I don't really know, but he has a 26.5% usage rate without him out there, so it's a bump for all of these guys. I agree that VanVleet should be getting plenty of ownership. So should OG. So should Scotty Barnes with point guard and small forward eligibility. Gary Trent getting 10% at 5,600. Again, the rotation yesterday is concerning, but he's still averaging mid 30s per game this year. I would anticipate that you're going to get Gary Trent playing full minutes, as he normally does. And then for the other options, Christian Koloko had a massive game yesterday. Thought it was going to make me some money. It didn't, but he played 31 minutes. He had like 6 blocks, looked really good. It was like watching like Clint Capella, basically just swatting shots and then getting pick and rolls and, rim running and getting lobs. Looked really, really good. Have no confidence he plays 31 minutes again today. I think it's more likely than not that he plays that he plays 3 stints and plays like 20, 22 minutes. Not going to get him into a lot of lineups here, but that upside certainly there, and he's not getting much ownership. On the other hand, Chris Boucher was disappointing yesterday. He was like 50% owned, only played 22 minutes. He's 4,400 still, power forward, center eligible. There's a path to a lot more minutes for Boucher. Koloko can get in foul trouble. Koloko can not, can play poorly, not just be the entire like linchpin of the team like he was yesterday. And there's just so many ways for Boucher to get into more minutes. So I do like going back to Boucher here. He's a good point per minute guy. At 4,400, he doesn't need a ton of minutes to pay that off. And if he gets 30 plus, which is at least on the table, even though it's not the medium projection, you're going to need him at that salary.
I also think Precious is live to like fall into extra minutes potentially.
Yeah.
Same sort of vein as Koloko and Boucher. Not that I like expect it, not a guy that we should be talking about, but they will just give one of those random guys like 30 minutes from time to time.
Yeah, the reason I prefer Boucher on DraftKings is just that, well, one, he's a little bit better point per minute guy, but two, he has power forward eligibility, whereas Achua is only a center. But yeah, we've already seen the game once this year when I think it was when Scotty Barnes was out. And that's relevant because Toronto runs basically the same rotation when any of their starters are out. It doesn't matter what position, they just play these guys like the exact same way. We already saw the game where it was Achua that, came off the bench and just went for a million. So that certainly can happen as well. It's just easier to get to Boucher.
Yeah. Achua played 33 minutes in back-to-back games when Barnes got hurt and then missed the next game. But whether
Boucher was out / coming back then too, though.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I do think Boucher would be ahead of him. Just good shit all around for Toronto.
Agreed.
Less good shit all around for the Chicago Bulls because they aren't very good. Zach LaVine is probable. No Lonzo, no Andre Drummond. Q tag on Kobe White probably doesn't matter at all. Highest owned guy is Zach LaVine, 7K on FanDuel. He's 8% owned. If you want to get to DeRozan or LaVine, I think that's fine. Patrick Williams, if you need some value, I guess, but nothing crazy good for Chicago. It's just sort of like starters or no one at all.
Yeah. One thing that I think was a really big takeaway from yesterday's game, and I'm not sure how much or if it changes with LaVine back, they were doubling DeRozan hard the entire game. He only had 9 field goal attempts. I believe that's the least amount of field goal attempts he's had in a single game since joining the Bulls, and that was a game where Zach LaVine was out. So that is just something from like a matchup standpoint that is really concerning. But I think to me, it might be a situation where it all kind of just comes out in the wash. Like you expect that higher usage rate from DeRozan when LaVine is out, but Toronto just made sure that didn't happen. Now with LaVine back, I think it's more difficult to sell out to stop DeRozan, but you're also just going to have LaVine cutting into his usage. So ultimately it comes out to where, I think like you said, if you get to some DeRozan, some LaVine, some Vooch, all of that is fine, but hard to say any of it is a priority. You still don't have Andre Drummond, which is a benefit for Vooch. In terms of playing time, you got 35 and a half minutes again from him yesterday. I think he's averaging 33 or 34 per game without Drummond. So kind of like I mentioned with Chris Paul earlier, you can add an extra minute or two onto where you would project Vooch. Still doesn't make him look like a priority, just makes him look slightly better than he would.
Next one up, Boston at Memphis. The Celtics are 4-point favorites in Memphis, 231 total. Full strength for the Boston Celtics here, or at least as full strength as they can be. Clearly no Robert Williams, but Al Horford is available for this one. No Luke Cornett, so I guess maybe not full strength, but your mileage may vary on whether or not that matters. Jason Tatum obviously off to an incredible start to the season, ultra efficient, getting to the line a ton, playing 36 plus minutes. That said, 10-2 on DraftKings, 10-2 on FanDuel seems about right. Highest owned guy in this game is Al Horford, 7% on FanDuel. You could also get 7% ownership of Malcolm Brogdon. Much like half of this slate, or even more than half of this slate, there are no priorities from Boston.
Yeah, if you get to Tatum, obviously that's great. There's a bunch of other guys around them that are going to look good as well. Same goes for Jaylen Brown. I do still think he's a little bit underpriced, probably at 8,400 with shooting guard, small forward. But on this slate, there's just still so many guys there that you can't just point to him and say like, oh yeah, this is the guy. Because if I'm playing 25% Jaylen Brown, then that necessarily means I'm probably playing less of the Drew Holiday, Tyrese Halliburton, Paolo Banchero, Zion Williamson types, and I don't think Jaylen Brown is like drastically better than any of them. So, yeah, they're really appealing pieces to fit into tournament lineups because they have high ceilings. They're not going to get ownership, but there's a lot of other people you can say the exact same thing about.
This slate, man, every single time we go to a game, it's like, yep, all 5 starters look like they're the same sort of 4 to 7% plays.
Yep.
Yuck. Memphis side, Pretty cut and dry here, I think, as well. Q tag on Steven Adams, though, that actually matters because any place that we can go to free up more minutes at low salaries, that's going to pay dividends on a day like today. You're just going to feel more confident about getting to those guys. If Adams is in, I don't care at all about Memphis. I think they just become interesting if Adams happens to be out. Do you like anything if Adams is in?
Not really. It's just another team. Like clearly, John Morant, Desmond Bane are really good. I think they're also correctly priced. Dylan Brooks, same thing. Adams feels like a true Q tag to me. He got hurt early in the second half last game. Memphis had a big lead, so it seemed unlikely he would come back regardless. Memphis then blew their lead, so Adams did come back. But I believe his quote after the game when asked about his ankle was, "My ankle is a bit fucked." So I don't know how much that bodes well for him playing today. So yeah, it seems like a true Q tag to me. Like normally I would, without the quote, I would just be like, oh, he came back, he's fine, as long as it didn't.
I mean, technically he's not questionable.
Well, did they release their injury report yet?
No one. I mean, they played yesterday. Like no one did. Like They are not actually on an injury report yet. But
right. We're just
the anticipation is that like he was hurt yesterday.
Right. Yeah, like if we didn't have the quote after the game, I would just be like, as long as it didn't swell overnight, I think he's playing because he came back. The quote kind of makes me think that it might be an actual injury and he just sucked it up and played through it and then is not going to do that again. So I don't know. Obviously, we'll get more information when the injury report comes out. If he is out, that opens up Brandon Clark as a $4,200 power forward option. He would look like a really good value. You potentially also get more minutes for Santi Aldama. Xavier Tillman, I would expect, joins the rotation as a 3K power forward punt if you wanted to hope that like Clark gets in foul trouble or something.
Stephen Leibowitz wants you to do the Steven Adams quote in the Australian accent.
I can't do accents.
You got this.
No.
Please?
Nope.
Man. There's a non-zero chance, man. Like on a deeper dive, maybe if you had already had like a beer or something today, just feeling it enough to give it a shot, I'd have been very happy about it. Yeah, we'll see what the status is. He'll get added to an injury report potentially in 2 hours. So maybe even longer. They don't have to have one out anytime soon. He's from New Zealand. Yeah, same place.
Yeah, if he was Australian, I could do it. I can't do New Zealand.
Yeah. Same place. Far away. I don't know.
Random island.
Yep. Lucky we even acknowledge them. Knicks, and I assume AB, if you're watching this one, I hope you have no ties to New Zealand or Australia. I'm tired of taking shots. You're going to tell me that you're like your wife's whole family or something's from New Zealand, and now I'm saying that those islands can just drop into the sea as well. So I anxiously await those DMs. Shout out to AB. Watch the NFL strategy show from this morning. To the Knicks we go. Now this game might be the first time that we actually have a lot to talk about. The New York Knicks are 4-point dogs in Minnesota, 230 total. But what we have here is finally some interesting things. Mitchell Robinson is out and hurt. There's a Q tag on Quentin Grimes. Not that I really care too much about that one, but we saw Isaiah Hartenstein step into 38.5 minutes with no Mitchell Robinson. And Tibbs sort of likes that kind of stuff. I didn't give him that. I gave him 32. I think Isaiah Hartenstein is the best, or at least the second best play on today's slate. Let's just start with him. Anything negative that you could possibly say, or is he just obvious?
He's obvious. I mean, the negative is that it's a 15-game slate and the guy's pulling 30% ownership, but it's warranted. I think last game I projected him for 28 minutes. After seeing his rotation, I am with you. I'm going to 32 today. There's obviously still the risk of foul trouble. Like that just happens with centers. There's obviously still the risk that the rotation changes. Like we didn't see, I had expected. So when Robinson got hurt a couple of games before, they played quite a bit of Julius Randle and Obi Toppin alongside each other. Yeah. I had thought that would be the case here. And that's part of the reason that I'd only gone to 28 minutes on him and I'd gone to like 20 to 22 on Toppin, which led to a massive Obi Toppin stand that did not work out. They didn't do it last game. They could do it today. I don't expect it though, because you do have a big Minnesota front court. So I think it's more what?
I mean, they played 7 minutes alongside each other.
Well, that's because Randall played 40 minutes.
Wow. I think that's live again today too. We'll get to Julius Randle.
So do I, but I'm saying they didn't like. I think Randall's playing a ton of minutes no matter what.
Okay.
They just didn't play. Like one risk to Hartenstein is that Randall plays big minutes, but Toppin plays more.
Sure.
And he did. Is what I'm getting at. I think Randall plays a lot regardless. I don't anticipate that being the case here, but that's another risk in addition to foul trouble. But all that said, he just clearly looks really good. He's a good point per minute guy. He's coming off of a game where he played 38 and a half minutes. It's going to look great.
Yeah. Like I said, I gave him 32. I actually thought Jericho Sims would get more run. They like him, but apparently not as much as I thought they did.
Yeah, I mean, I had him getting like 10 minutes instead of 2.
I would have, heading into it, I would have gave him 16 or 18, something like that, because I thought they actually did care, and they don't seem to ever care about the Randle-Toppin pairing, but apparently they do. Julius Randle, assuming, I'm going straight to 36 minutes for Randle in this spot. That just feels very Tibbsy. He's 7,600 on DraftKings. Oh, the one thing that I buried, Isaiah Hartenstein is a power forward on FanDuel, not a center. So
yeah, much, much easier there.
He's 45% owned.
Yeah, that's my only concern on DraftKings, because it's not, with it being a 15-game slate, this is another one of those situations like I said with Harrell. Let's say Hartenstein goes for 33 DraftKings points. I think it's very likely that it's a situation where you get to feel smart because you played a guy that's 6X'd, and then you also just get to watch your lineups get buried by teams that played 2 centers that scored 50 fantasy points.
Julius Randle is 7,600 on DraftKings, 7,200 on FanDuel with power forward center eligibility. I'm shocked that he's not getting more ownership here. I think I don't want to say that he's like Hartenstein is today, because Hartenstein's price is obviously not correct for the role that he has. I think Julius Randle is one of the first guys that we've talked about so far today that I think is an actively good play.
I'm curious to see what happens with industry projections in general, how many minutes they go to on Randle, because that'll obviously have a big impact on his ownership. But I'm with you. I projected him 36 minutes last game. He played 40. I think you're going to be back to seeing that. There have been 2 big knocks from a fantasy standpoint on Randle this year. One is that Jalen Brunson cuts into his assist percentage. That's not going anywhere. The other is that he's averaging 33 minutes per game. And the reason is that you've basically been getting 48 minutes combined from Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson. That leaves 48 minutes for Obi Toppin and Julius Randle. And Obi Toppin's just not going to play 10 minutes a game. So in previous years, you were getting those 37, 38 minutes a night from Julius Randle, and it's just not there anymore unless they essentially cut Toppin out of the rotation, which they're not. But now, without 2 centers, you can just play Julius Randle a ton of minutes, still let Obi Toppin get his 15 to 20, and everything's good. So I think Julius Randle gets a big bump in minutes without Mitchell Robinson.
I don't want to say that I don't have much interest in Brunson or Barrett, but those guys just look like everybody else we've talked about at this point.
Yeah, I think Barrett, I'm not positive, but I think Barrett finally had his big game last time out. And of course, I didn't have him. But same thing I've been saying with Barrett. He's 6,500. He's going to shoot a lot. He's going to shoot better going forward than he has to this point. Yeah. There's a ton of $6,500 guys that are low owned that look fine today. Same goes for Brunson at 7,100. Plenty of upside, but nothing that makes him really stand out. To me, it's Julius Randle and Hartenstein. At their given ownership, Hartenstein is just clearly a good play, but at their given ownership, I think Julius Randle, all things considered in tournaments, is my favorite play from the Knicks.
I agree with you. FanDuel different just because of the power forward eligibility. If I'm talking from that normal perspective, that just changes the game dramatically. Why he's not power forward center makes no sense to me either, but whatever. But yeah, I love Randle today. And then we go to Minnesota. Rudy Gobert still out, missed their last one with COVID. Last time we saw this, we didn't get basketball for a while, so I hope it's not going to be that bad. I wish that I could have done a show the moment that this news came out, because jokes on jokes on jokes for this one. But for now, it's just no Rudy Gobert, which means they go back to their 5-out offense, which I assume is going to make Anthony Edwards happy. It's certainly going to make people rostering Kyle Anderson happy. 4,100 on DraftKings, 3,600 on FanDuel, where he's pulling 64% ownership on a 15-game slate. He's 30% owned on DK. Kyle Anderson is the Isaiah Hartenstein of the Minnesota Timberwolves for today. Probably, honestly, a little bit better just because of position and price tag. But if he's starting again, it's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah. 30% ownership on DraftKings, small forward, power forward, 4,100. This is somebody that we know is a competent fantasy producer. He played 30 minutes last game. If you wanted to do the same thing we just did with Hartenstein, where you say, well, what if the rotation looks different? What does it look like? Naz Reid played 13 minutes last game, fouled out at the end. There's nothing preventing Naz Reid from playing 20 minutes off the bench and Kyle Anderson losing some minutes. One thing that does make me feel relatively confident in Anderson, Taurean Prince played 31 minutes in that game. I would be a lot more scared to go to Kyle Anderson here if it was like, oh, Anderson played 30, Reed played 13, Prince played 16. And it was just like, okay, in this game, Kyle Anderson got all the minutes, but there weren't that many minutes to go around as a whole. That would be kind of scary. The fact that they combined to play 60 minutes and then Reed played another, Prince and Anderson combined for 60, Reed played 13. There's just a lot of minutes there where, unless they insert somebody else into the rotation, like Austin Rivers wasn't in the rotation. If they put him in the rotation, that would change things. But since he wasn't in the rotation, I'm assuming he's not going to be in the rotation. It's just really difficult for those minutes to adjust enough to where a $4,100 Kyle Anderson ends up being a bad play.
Not you didn't even mention him, but like Jaden McDaniels also still played 34 minutes. Like that's another guy in that similar positional vein that also got the full freight. Right. So
Jalen Noel only played like 15 or 14 non-garbage time minutes, but I'm not too concerned about that.
No, McLaughlin got 22, so like they sort of they came out in the wash together at that point. Either like the downside for Kyle Anderson is like 26 minutes or so, 24 minutes, and he's still like a really good point per dollar play for today. Yeah, it's just a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. I also like Anthony Edwards quite a bit. 8,200 on DraftKings, 8K on FanDuel, pulling a little bit of ownership. You got the 12% on the FanDuel side. I think this fits him better offensively. I think the space will help him. That's not really like as actionable as I wanted to, but I know he'll be happy about it because he's been chirping about it.
Do you know if he dunked last game?
I don't believe that he did.
But yeah,
how crazy is that though?
I like Edwards. To me, he's just kind of Jaylen Brown, the same way I talked about Jaylen Brown. He's an 8,200 shooting guard, small forward. He's going to fit nicely in the lineups, gives you a really high ceiling. Still just a million guys around him, so it's not like I can say like, oh yeah, I'm jamming in Anthony Edwards everywhere. I was kind of surprised the Cat was only getting 4% ownership. I had not looked to realize that his salary jumped to 10K since their last game. So I do like Cat more without Gobert, but that's still a pretty healthy price tag.
All right, let's see. Oh, that's last year. 21, 22, 22, 23. Edwards. Evidently, he's got two of them now per Basketball Reference.
Okay, so they would have both come last game, I think.
Yeah, I guess. Had none. So, Towns, sure. Taurean Prince, 3,600 on FanDuel. Like, do I think that Kyle Anderson should be 64% owned and Taurean Prince should be 9%? Probably not. Like, just in a vacuum, I could see that breaking a slightly different way. So I do have some interest in Taurean Prince on FanDuel and DraftKings to a degree, but nothing too crazy. I think Anderson. How
are you planning to handle that group-wise? I'm just kind of in my head debating if I would rather go max 1 of Anderson, Prince, Reed, or max 2. With it being a 15-game slate, I'm thinking I probably just don't want Kyle Anderson and Taurean Prince together, just because. But like, they also could just be fine.
I probably wouldn't set anything. Like if you're doing a max 3 for every single team basically today, I doubt you get that many combinations of Anderson and Prince to begin with to care. Like if 4 of them show up in your lineups, are you that brokenhearted?
Well, I mean, just with those 3 in particular, like I'm thinking mostly along the lines of Naz Reid, because I do think Naz Reid's a good tournament play at no ownership at 3,700 with power forward eligibility. Dealt with foul trouble in the first half last game, which did affect his rotation some. They essentially just used him as Karl Anthony Towns' backup, which isn't good for his minutes, but there's nothing saying they have to do that again. So like, I'm kind of thinking from it in terms of Naz Reid. Like if I get Naz Reid in a lineup, am I okay with Kyle Anderson also being in that lineup or Taurean Prince also being in that lineup?
I would be. I don't know if I would want like Reed, Prince, and Anderson, obviously.
Right, which now we're back to my max 2 of those 3.
I would have no problem having 2 of them.
Yeah, okay.
They just don't appear all that likely to be giving minutes to anybody else.
Right. That's kind of how I was thinking of it too. Like if you got them combining for 73 minutes last game. If it switches today and instead of Prince playing 31 and Reed playing 13, they both play, Prince plays 22 and Reed plays 20. Reed's going to be a really good play, and I would still be perfectly fine having him with Kyle Anderson.
Yep.
Or vice versa. Anderson somehow plays 22 and Reed plays 20. Same kind of thing.
All right. Anything else from Minnesota?
Nope. And also to Jeremy Savage's point, they're just not. It's not going to happen that frequently anyway. Where I get them together. But also, like Kyle Anderson projects as one of the best values on the slate, and that's not necessarily tied at all to Naz Reid. So I don't want to just say, oh, I'm not playing Naz Reid and Kyle Anderson together.
Denver Nuggets are big favorites here. 7.5 points in San Antonio, 232 total in this one. For the Nuggets, probable tag on Jeff Green, doubtful tag on Zeke Naji, doubtful tag on Ish Smith. So none of that should matter. I think the only really interesting piece of this game is that Nikola Jokic is 10,700 on FanDuel, and that's like the first really crazy price tag we've seen for a pay-up option. So I like Jokic quite a bit on FanDuel. We've mentioned 100 centers at this point too, so at least Isaiah Hartenstein's a power forward. I can't imagine you're all that interested in anything on Denver.
I'm not. It's just really difficult to pay up for a center in general, but especially when every team is playing. And then also, Jokic doesn't produce at the same rates as Giannis and Luka, who are obviously both on the slate. So that makes it tough as well. From the rest of Denver, Murray, Porter, Gordon, those guys are all pretty much always playable. Murray's price tag is slowly increasing. He's up to 6,200. Porter's at 64. Gordon's at 57. It's just another team there where I just feel like it's, if you get to him, fine. Did you see what Bones Highland did late in the game the other day?
I know that he went nuts. I don't know anything.
He
specific.
I had like random, not like live to win lineups, but just like random decent lineups at Highland. So I was paying attention, and it was just like, oh, Highland's doing okay for his salary. And then he has like 24 points, 24 fantasy points at 4,400. And then like 2 minutes later, I look and he's got 44. I thought like DraftKings pricing or DraftKings scoring broke. So in the fourth quarter of that game, he scored 11 points with 5 assists and 2 steals.
Unbelievable.
All that to say, I can't imagine really getting to a $4,800 Highland on a 15-game slate, but the dude's a fantasy monster.
He is. I'm not a huge fan, so I hope he never does anything good. San Antonio Spurs side of this one, highest owned guy is 9% owned Keldon Johnson. Then it's 6% owned Trey on a different site. I don't have any interest in San Antonio.
Same. Interesting to see if Vassell... What?
Nothing.
Interesting to see if Vassell moves back into the starting lineup. Came off the bench again last game, played 24 minutes. But this is another team where because they've had so many guys out recently, namely Vassell, you've just kind of gotten prices coming up. Jakob Poeltl is going to look fine. Keldon Johnson's always fine, but nothing looks very good for me from the Spurs.
Yeah, I don't have a single thing to add here. So before we get to the final 4 games, God, this slate just won't go away. We got to talk a little bit about BetMGM. Guys, incredible deal here. There's a link in the description. If you click that link, you'll get some instructions. You got to be new to sports betting. You got to be in a legal state. You can't have signed up at BetMGM yet. However, what I want you guys to do is do all of this because you will have the opportunity to get up to a $1,000 risk-free bet along with 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Just please, you can see the link in chat from Stream Elements, or you can click the link in the description. Just go check it out. If you were looking to get into sports betting, you get 2 months of us plus that free bet at BetMGM. It doesn't get any better than that. Oh, God. Brooklyn Nets, 6.5-point dogs in Dallas, 215 total. For Brooklyn, obviously we are without Kyrie Irving at this moment. Not going to be back for a couple games. Q tag on Ben Simmons, which is mildly annoying, but also probably not all that relevant. I think the easier thing to say is that I think Brooklyn looks awful in this spot. Going up against Dallas, the slowest team in the league. Feel free to get your shares of Kevin Durant if you want them. I don't know how you pick anybody else on this team right now.
Yeah, I mean, Durant clearly always good, but he's priced up now too. He's 11-1. So you're just back to these situations where obviously he's a good play, but when you consider salary and everything else, he's just on the same page as a bunch of other guys because he actually is correctly priced. I am still interested in Nick Claxton if Ben Simmons is out. I think that still makes a huge difference. Claxton's a very good point per minute guy. He's playing 30 plus minutes without Simmons. If Simmons is in, I don't know what the rotation looks like because you're still missing Kyrie. So maybe you do just get more Simmons and Claxton minutes and they don't stagger them like they had been. But that also just seems like a really, really bad offensive environment having those 2 guys on the floor. So don't really know what happens to Claxton's minutes if Simmons is in. I'm confident if Simmons is out, Claxton still plays a lot. Dallas is very slow, as you said. I don't think there's a lot here, especially if Simmons plays.
Yeah, this is gross.
Even Cam Thomas is up to 4,400.
And he could just like not play today if Ben Simmons is back.
Yeah. Like, I don't know how he was almost 10% owned last slate with Seth Curry back, but still got there, scored 30 fantasy points. But if Simmons is also back, it just becomes really difficult to want to do anything there. Yeah, I don't know. Tough.
It's as bad of a game environment as you can get with a team that plays like a shit ton of dudes, and you don't know what they're doing.
Right.
And the guys that do play a ton of minutes, the Royce O'Neals, Joe Harrises of the world, are all shit per minute guys anyway.
Right. And on a lot of slates, Royce O'Neal's been a good play just because you can at least count on him to play a lot of minutes. But it's a 15-game slate. There's no shortage of guys that are going to play mid to upper 30s in minutes and, have opportunities.
Be better at a per minute rate than him, too. We go to the Dallas side of this one. This should be a free reign for Luka to just destroy the Brooklyn Nets. 12-5, however, for Luka Doncic on DraftKings. 11-8 on FanDuel. What do you do here?
Same as with Giannis, same as with Durant. I would love to get to Luka here. I think I like this spot, or like him in general, more than the other guys. He plays more minutes than Giannis. He's producing at a similar rate this year. He's playing the Nets. It's still really tough to get there unless like entire teams start getting ruled out between now and lock.
3% owned. Like, it's just, you can make any decision you want. You're not fighting ownership today.
Yeah.
If you want Luka Doncic to be your stand, like, by all means.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, other than you're going to have some shitty teams around him, but
yeah. After that, I mean, it took JaVale McGee, 9 games to get fully booted, basically. We're now going back to Dwight Powell, which is fine by me. I find that interesting. Obviously, Christian Wood has been exceptional running the second unit, but Dinwiddie's minutes are climbing and climbing and climbing. That said, revenge narrative, I guess, Dinwiddie.
Oh yeah, he's playing a ton too. I actually don't mind that at 6K in the sense that he's not getting any ownership and he looks fine, but certainly not anything I'm prioritizing. Christian Wood's salary is finally coming down. There is a legit ceiling for him at 6,400. The issue is just the playing time hasn't been what we would like either. Like, you're seeing games where they don't close with him, like a lot of games where they don't close with him. And then it doesn't make me feel any better that they did try and close with him the other day, and Dallas just like played like shit, blew the lead. And the reporters basically asked Jason Kidd about, the closing lineup with Christian Wood. And his answer was more or less, this is why we don't do it. So that certainly doesn't make me very confident that you're getting those minutes going forward.
That's the kind of stuff that makes me happy when people are just like, oh, he's incredible at fantasy. Like, why isn't he playing? It's like, because they get their ass beat when they get in the nut crunching time because he can't defend worth shit.
Yeah. Like Jason, I don't remember the exact wording anymore, what the question was, but the way Kidd phrased it, it was almost just like, this is what you asked for. I did it. This is why I don't do it.
Yeah. And he's completely right too, so far. What a resurgence for Jason Kidd, who was not looking great after he left Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Rights the ship for LA, gets to Dallas. Didn't think it was going to work well, and he has turned this team into a very interesting defensive monster with not necessarily great defensive talent.
He's also become much more fantasy friendly than he used to be.
Yeah, he was an asshole in Milwaukee. Sacramento Kings, they are 7.5-point dogs in Golden State, 230 total in this one. On the Sacramento side, everybody's healthy, which means this should be pretty easy to talk about. No one's getting any ownership. I think the best play in the game might be Harrison Barnes, which is really gross to say. If you play Fox or Sabonis, I think it's fine. There are no priorities from Sacramento for me, but definitely seems like the bloom is off the Keegan Murray rose.
Yeah, which means any day now you should get the massive Keegan Murray game. But 8,600 for Sabonis looks good. I would really like him if he had power forward eligibility at center. Cool. It's just another really high upside play that doesn't have much margin for error. Barnes and Herter are going to be easier to fit into lineups given their positional eligibility, but they're obviously not as exciting of options. De'Aaron Fox, really, really good. Also nearly 9K. So it's another team that I like the players. I like the pieces. I like the matchup. They're tough to say that they're just, actively better than all the other options around them.
We go to Golden State, who looked slightly different their last time out on November 4th, where everyone didn't play. So now everyone
Same
does
result
play.
as when the starters play, though.
Yeah. Kuminga, by the way, got 38 minutes. What a no-brainer play.
Kuminga in the rotation going forward.
You think? Or
I
it's
mean,
been said.
Kerr said it, so
Interesting. Okay.
maybe not.
I mean, that could be just about anything at this point, too. Pretty easy to just take like Ty Jerome's minutes away, and now Kuminga means nothing. But
I didn't
Klay
take it to mean
Thompson.
that he ends up being like a good fantasy option. I took it to mean like their rotations are going to get more annoying.
Fair enough. Klay Thompson, 5,700 on DraftKings, 5,500 on FanDuel, pulling 15-ish% ownership on both sites. Probably my favorite guy. There's going to be 100 different Klay Thompson dudes in the 5Ks that aren't getting that ownership today. Not that I think that the ownership is unwarranted. Do you have any priorities here for Golden State?
I think Klay. Like to your point, I think Klay is like the best of all of those options in that range, and that's why he's getting the ownership. But then it does become a situation where it's just like Klay versus any individual one of those guys is the favorite. Klay versus the field is not the favorite. So it's just like if you want to, you could very easily just like cut Klay's ownership, play a little bit more of all the other guys, assuming you're playing multiple lineups. If you're not playing multiple lineups, it becomes more difficult because like then you have to actually pick which one beats him, which is tough. But from like an MME standpoint, I think it's a perfectly reasonable strategy if you were to just say, okay, well, I will play all of the 2% owned guys at the expense of Klay's 16%. But all of that said, I think he looks really good at 5,700. Curry at 9,900, obviously Steph Curry, that's fine. Kevon Looney only 4,200. We've seen his minutes up pretty drastically, at least in games that they're winning or that are competitive this year. I think there's some upside there, but again, it's just, you're using a center spot on somebody that is not going to score 50 fantasy points. And that scares me on this slate.
That's fair. I feel like LeVert is on the fade with Garland and Mitchell becoming comfy. Yeah, that's an understatement. 2 games to go, man. We're almost here. It's taking a little bit longer than, well, it's taking as long as I expected it to take, but we're really trying to trim as much as we can. Lakers, 3-point underdogs in Utah. Raise your hand if you expected that to be the line of this game before the season started. For the Lakers, no Pat Bev. He is out for this one. Dennis Schroeder still out. We finally had AD or LeBron's price on FanDuel come back up to normal. We did not have ADs do that. 9,100 for Anthony Davis on DraftKings. I don't know why he's 5% owned. To me, this is just another like sort of mistake. Is it like not like a guaranteed play? No, but I think AD of any of the pay up options we've seen today looks the best in relationship to his ownership.
Yeah, I think 9,100 looks really good. Power forward eligibility is nice as well. Only 5% ownership seems a little bit low. So I'm with you there. Looks to me like my favorite option, I think, on DraftKings, at least of the real players. Kendrick Nunn started yesterday. Didn't play a lot of minutes, but he's 3K flat. He played 18 minutes. That includes garbage time. Played 4 minutes to open the game. Played 6 minutes to open the second quarter. Didn't close the half. Played 3.5 minutes to open the third quarter. Didn't come back till garbage time. I have no confidence whatsoever in his minutes. But the flip side to that is if Kendrick Nunn comes out and starts playing well, there's no reason he can't play more minutes. And at 3K, it's not going to take a lot for him. At 3K and on a slate where pricing is as tight as it is, it's not going to take a lot for Kendrick Nunn to go from a guy you're really uncomfortable with to a guy that you absolutely have to have.
He's tricky today.
Yeah, I have no idea how to project him.
I gave him 20. I don't feel really comfortable about that.
He played virtually no minutes alongside Russell Westbrook. I think he played like 2. That's concerning because like Russ is going to get his.
Yeah, like with no Pat Bev, Russ is very likely to be a part of like closing lineups and stuff at this point now too.
Yeah, like I think I might go 28-20 or like 30-20.
I went 28-20.
But the issue there too is, I mean, Russ played 32 minutes without garbage time. He lost 5 minutes in garbage. He was going to play 37 minutes in that game. So like if I only go 30 on Russ, I am definitely leaving myself open to just getting buried by him.
Yeah, that's fair. I think LeBron and AD are both fine on FanDuel. AD 10-3. It's probably the appropriate price for him right now. 10-1 on FanDuel for LeBron. Honestly, probably like a hair low, but neither one of them's a priority.
I was still just looking at this rotation. The first half rotation, because the second half just got weird. Like there was garbage time. Russ subbed in earlier than usual. They were getting killed. But in the first half, you got like 11 minutes from Nunn. You got like 16 from Russ. I don't think like a 32-22 is crazy.
Oh man, Kendrick Nunn, the swing piece for today. That's a thing.
I like him a hell of a lot more if he's going to be 7% owned than if you were to get, the 20-25%.
Absolutely. Anything else for the Lakers?
Not really. I mean, Troy Brown Jr. is cheap. Walker has opportunities here. But really, I like Davis. I like Russ. And then Kendrick Nunn has the potential to ruin your night or win the slate. And I think both are kind of equally likely.
Alrighty. And we go to Utah. Not sure we're going to be able to talk about this one right now. And that's really a problem. This is the first time we're getting to a game where it's really, really important that we have this injury news and we might not have it. Mike Conley,
Colin Sexton, and then he gets better if Conley sits.
Mike Conley could sit today. He played one back-to-back this year. He sat another back-to-back. There's also a Q tag on Jared Vanderbilt. That is another trickle-down effect for this Utah team. They're playing an awful Lakers team. And everybody's getting ownership. 12% to Markkanen, 15 to Clarkson, 11 to Conley, 15 to Vanderbilt, 11 to Colin Sexton. How do we handle this team?
I think you play a lot of them. And this is based on nothing other than just like it kind of makes sense to me. I'm wondering with Conley, because it was a big surprise he played that first back-to-back. And then he didn't play the second one. I'm wondering if they had him play the first back-to-back just because Sexton wasn't ready to play full minutes. And then because that second back-to-back is when the Colin Sexton reemergence started. They just threw him into the starting lineup. He played a bunch of minutes, and he's been playing a bunch of minutes off the bench ever since. So I'm wondering if that was the logic. Like if the plan was we're not going to typically have Conley play back-to-backs, but we are this one because Sexton isn't ready yet. So that to me would kind of make sense. But again, I don't know. Either way, though, I think Sexton's a good play. You've been getting him closing alongside Conley pretty much every game now. He's playing 28, around 28 minutes, closing both halves. If Conley's out, you're just looking at even more minutes. So I think Sexton's a really good play at $4,600 no matter what. I think if Conley is out, he becomes arguably the best play on the slate. Markkanen looks good at 7,500 as usual. Vanderbilt opens the door for a more solidified minutes for Kelly Olynyk. He played 29 and a half last night, still played like shit. He hasn't been very good from a fantasy standpoint this year, unless I am being chased by him in a tournament. Then he plays fantastic. But, had 5,000 that game and still managed to get to almost 30 minutes. So if Vanderbilt's out, I do think it's an uptick for Olynyk's playing time. Beasley started and played 31 and a half minutes. Obviously an uptick for him if Vanderbilt is out, assuming he would remain in the starting lineup. So there's a lot to like here. If Vanderbilt's in, he looks fine at 5,300. Clarkson at 6,300 looks really good. I'm going to just be playing a lot of this team, which is nice in some ways because it's going to make it easier to late swap when you do get news. The injury report will probably tell us a decent amount. If somehow we don't get... If Conley's not on the injury report, I'm assuming he's playing. If he's listed as questionable, I'm probably going to assume that he doesn't.
Vanderbilt piece is tricky too. But yeah, if they're always so weird about Conley too. I think we'll know in like 2 hours whether or not he's on the injury report or not, and that'll.
Yeah, I'm really just hoping that either we get he's out or he's not on the injury report because I know what to do with both of those. If they say he's I never know how to treat it when it's like questionable for rest. It's like just make the decision and tell us.
Yeah, how don't you know yet?
Right. Yeah, you're either going to play him or you're not. Nothing's going to change.
Like his whole day changes. You don't take naps the same way. You don't go stretch or get taped. Like I assume Mike Conley's got a pretty big like pregame thing where he's got to get his body right.
Right.
Is he going to go through all that shit or not?
Right. Yeah. Like the coaching staff comes up to him. They're like, "Hey man, we're not sure what we're going to do yet." And he goes through the whole routine. 6 o'clock. They're like, "Yeah, we're going to," or whatever, an hour before the game. They're like, "Yeah, we're going to rest you today." Like I'd be pissed if I'm Mike Conley.
For real. And then we close it out with, I don't know, not interesting stuff. Cleveland at the Clippers. 1.5 point dogs in LA, 220 total. For Cleveland, I think everybody's available. Everybody but Ricky Rubio. So yes, everybody is available. Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, Allen, those are pretty much the only names that you could actually try to play today. Garland pulling 17% ownership at 6,900. That seems warranted to me. He's 8K on FanDuel. I like Garland. If you get any Mobley or Allen, I think it's fine, but we have 100 different versions of those guys today. Mitchell, to me, probably overpriced given Garland is back. But I like Garland on DraftKings.
Yeah, I think Garland looks great. And this is another one. Keep an eye on the injury report. Just make sure we don't get anything weird because they did play yesterday. Garland played 39 minutes. Mitchell played 37 minutes. But yeah, Garland looks like one of the best mid-range plays to me, assuming he's good to go. It's just a lot of playing time for a very good player at $6,900. And yeah, Mitchell, obviously, he's fine. If you get to some Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, that's all fine. But Garland's the one guy that stands out.
Yeah, it's so hard to talk about Mobley and Jared Allen being appropriately priced today and how you feel about them. And then you go to the Clippers, or like the Los Angeles version of Oklahoma City. I hate this team so much. Q tag on Reggie Jackson, which matters. Doubtful tag, I guess, on John Wall because of the back-to-back. We have no Kawhi Leonard. We have no Luke Kennard. I mean, I'm happy to get to Paul George. I think he's probably appropriately-ish priced at 90-something hundred. Marcus Morris is playing massive minutes right now. I think we have to assume that happens moving forward. We go there. Zubats has been playing pretty massive minutes, but we all have all the centers in the world. You'd think Terrence Mann probably steps into some minutes if even without Reggie Jackson, like if it's just John Wall, Mann gets more minutes. If Reggie Jackson is also out, could be a lot of additional playing time to go around if that Reggie Jackson news breaks the wrong way. What do you do with the Clippers?
Yeah, there's a lot here. It is interesting to me that Marcus Morris played 37.5 minutes again last night. You had Robert Covington back. Covington didn't play in the second half, but you got a lot of minutes in the first half from Morris too. So to me, it just seems like they are actively playing Marcus Morris a lot of minutes. Amir Coffey played 1 minute, so they essentially just kicked him from the rotation as opposed to running a deeper rotation. Terrence Mann got the start in place of Luke Kennard. He played nearly 30 minutes. That doesn't have to happen. He was playing really well, but certainly plenty of minutes available for him. If John Wall is out, or assuming John Wall is out, that becomes the case even more. I would think that you get Amir Coffey in the rotation here just to soak up some minutes. But $3,300 Terrence Mann, don't think you're going to get him at 1% like you did yesterday. He's going to look like a really good value here, assuming he remains in the starting lineup. Morris at 5,400 looks solid. Paul George at 9,300 is fine. He's still playing without Kawhi. Yeah, that mix those two up.
Try saying it in a New Zealand accent.
Yeah, that was weird. Kawhi still playing without Kawhi. So he looks, fine. Zubats playing big minutes, like you said. Neither guy getting ownership. Neither one's a priority, but they are both, good tournament options. If Jackson and Wall are both out, I guess they start Mann and Powell both, would be my guess.
Seems right.
Could be Batum.
It could be Mann and Coffey.
Yeah.
They tend to yeah. They really
when
can.
When you have Paul George, it doesn't really matter. It's just like, well, he's going to have the ball in his hands and he can defend any position, so who cares? But yeah, Terrence Mann at 3,300, I think looks good. To whoever had asked about Kendrick Nunn in cash, I haven't even done projections yet, much less built any semblance of a cash lineup. But like Terrence Mann's presence just makes it so you aren't going to need Kendrick Nunn's downside in cash.
There's just no it's not necessary to get to sub 4K. You would need Kendrick Nunn to project for 30 minutes for that to happen. Right. There's no these 3,500
without having
going to show up.
Without having run any lineups or anything, my thinking was maybe there's a case where you just get all these players you really like, and then the 3K man or 3K Nunn makes it work. But if that's the case, then you're just gonna have $3,300 man that you can use instead.
Yeah, when I ran my optimals to start the day, it was just your ultra balanced build because you get that value out of Hartenstein and Kyle Anderson, and at that point, you're just getting the 7s and 8s and 9s and loading up there.
Yeah, makes sense.
15 games up, 15 games down, man. It took us 90 minutes to do this. You're going to need every bit of those 90 minutes for the deeper dive.
You need more than that with the way Lofty talks.
God. Anything else you want to add?
Nope.
GPP videos coming out in a bit. Obviously, injury report video will be pretty important for today. Anything else?
Nope.
There it is, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to PrizePicks. Thank you to BetMGM. Good luck today with this one, folks. This is incredibly difficult of a slate, but make sure you're watching the 2.5 hours of content we have later today, plus all of our pre-recorded content. We'll talk to you later, but we won't talk to you tomorrow. NBA is off. We'll talk to you Wednesday. Peace.